Long before the sun had fully risen over the rolling hills, the trail was already calling with its promise of solitude and freedom. Despite the early hour, the air carried a gentle warmth, hinting that the day would grow hot. The runner, who had spent countless mornings on these winding paths, felt a surge of anticipation and excitement. Each step brought a lightness to their soul, as though pounding the soft earth beneath sturdy running shoes could release any burden or worry that clung to them. This morning in particular seemed special. The sun's rays were catching the dew on the grass, turning every blade into a shimmering jewel. As inhalations deepened and exhalations slowed, the runner allowed their mind to clear, focusing solely on the gentle cadence of footfalls against the trail. Such concentration was nothing new, but it still surprised them how quickly the forest trail felt like home. So enveloping, it was easy to forget everything else. They did not realize how crucial it would be to stay alert that day. The runner's favorite route lay deep in the heart of a sprawling nature reserve. Cut through the forest, the path hugged small streams, loped over modest hills, and skirted around rocky outcroppings. Though mostly well maintained, some areas were more hazardous, especially after rains or when sun dappled shadows made it hard to see twisted roots and jagged rocks. It was exactly that kind of morning, pockets of intense light interspersed with dark patches under thick canopies of leaves. Running was their passion, a catalyst for unburdening the world's stress. They wanted to push themselves, to feel lungs expand, to test legs that felt stronger with every stride. As they navigated the curves, the runner was driven by pure adrenaline and that small, unrelenting conquest against their own limits. Had they listened more closely, they might have heard the faint trickle of water signifying a slippery crossing. Instead, the heart hammered in time with the determined pace. A few miles into the run, the trail wound down to a small creek. Usually it was easy to hop across the stones protruding from the water, but a recent storm had shifted their positions and slicked them with algae. Fearless and running on sheer momentum, the runner bounded forward. Mid-leap, the underside of the shoe skidded across a mossy rock, causing the foot to twist painfully. A piercing lance of pain shot up the ankle. Startled, they fell to the ground, half slipping into the creek. The shock of cold water against scraped skin startled them more than the jolt of the injury. For a moment, they just lay there, breath labored and mingling with the echo of rushing water. Then panic washed through them. Cycling through possibilities, they moved the ankle and felt another wave of pain that threatened to take their breath away. Adrenaline kicked in again, but this time not in the exhilarating, freeing way, rather, it fueled the desperation. Gingerly, they pulled themselves to drier ground, wincing. Each attempt to stand turned into an excruciating lesson in humility. Their phone was stowed in a small waist pouch, but the reserve's reception was notoriously weak. They tried anyway. The phone displayed a single bar, only to blink out helplessly. Thoughts spun with the idea of hobbling back toward the entrance, but that was nearly 3 miles away, and the pain in the ankle would make that trek slow and torturous. The runner pushed down the swirl of worry, telling themselves to draw on each ounce of grit they possessed. They had always prided themselves on self-sufficiency. Stubbornness prodded them to at least try to stand and see if walking was an option. They attempted a few steps, clenching their jaw in an effort to control the searing discomfort. The world seemed to tilt with each movement. Within seconds, beads of sweat stood out sharply on their forehead, more from pain than exertion. A combination of frustration and fear welled up. They had come to this place countless times without trouble, and on a routine run, they'd been brought low by a single misstep. The possibility of a fracture scared them, though it was likely a bad sprain. Still, staying alone in the woods with no immediate help was not a comforting prospect. They considered their options carefully, their breathing coming in shallow bursts as they exchanged the phone's futility for scanning the horizon. That was when the distant shape of a figure emerged on the path, a silhouette framed by the shifting sunlight. As the figure drew closer, the faint outline revealed a uniform. A park ranger. Relief flooded the runner, mixed with an odd flicker of embarrassment at being found sprawled on the ground like a helpless fawn. The ranger was tall, broad shouldered, with a gentle but deeply empathetic expression etched across a sun kissed face. His steps were measured, and he greeted the injured runner with concern. Calmly kneeling beside them, he assessed the ankle with practiced hands that exuded tenderness. Speaking in a quiet, reassuring tone, he introduced himself as Aaron, a ranger assigned to this sector of the reserve. The runner, anxious and in pain, gave their own name and coughed out their gratitude. Aaron asked a litany of professional questions: where exactly the pain was felt, whether there had been any popping sound, his voice unwavering. The runner observed the kindness behind his eyes, a sense of purposeful comfort that made them exhale tension they didn't even realize they were holding. He probed the swollen ankle with careful fingertips, apologizing each time the runner hissed or flinched. Realizing immediate medical care was needed, he offered his shoulder, helping the runner lean on him. Together, they began the slow journey toward the ranger's vehicle, which was parked about half a mile away on a narrow, unpaved road that cut through the forest. At first, the runner was self-conscious about leaning so heavily on a stranger, but the warmth of Aaron's arm around their waist and his easy reassurance helped diminish the sting of vulnerability. Aaron was patient, matching his own pace to the runner's limited hobble. He pointed out safer patches on the trail and ensured the injured foot wouldn't collide with any protruding root or sharp rock. Despite the pain, the runner took fleeting notice of how comfortable it felt to be half signeted by him, how his presence influenced the entire situation with a sense of calm. He was like a solid anchor in an otherwise panicked day. When they finally reached Aaron's off-road vehicle, the runner was nearly trembling, not just from the ache, but from the nerves of the ordeal. Aaron gently eased them into the passenger seat, securing their injured leg on a makeshift pillow. He rummaged through a first aid kit, swiftly wrapping a compression bandage around the swelling. His touch remained consistently calming. Each movement came with a quiet apology for the twinges of pain. Once the bandaging was done, he hopped into the driver's seat and started down the bumpy path. The runner cringed with each jostle, but Aaron's attention remained as tender as ever, slowing down when the terrain grew rougher. Soon the forest thinned, and they emerged into a clearing where a modest ranger station stood, a humble structure set against a backdrop of tall pines. Inside the station, the runner saw that it was impossibly neat, half desk and half clinic. It contained rows of labeled supplies, a small cot, maps pinned meticulously to walls, and thick reference books about wildlife and plants. Aaron motioned toward the cot, helping them ease onto it. After a brief phone call, clearly reception was better in this clearing, he informed the runner that a medical team could be called if needed. However, he believed it was likely a sprain and recommended applying ice, rest, and perhaps arranging a ride home if they felt well enough. Lowering himself onto a nearby wooden stool, Aaron took a moment to exhale, a gentle smile forming on his lips. "You're the first real injury I've had out here in weeks," he said softly. "You probably won't believe me, but it's usually very peaceful. Just a lot of deer sightings. Occasional lost hikers who somehow ignore the trail marker." The runner offered a pained smile in return, half embarrassed and half grateful. Over the next hour, as they rested with an ice pack braced against their throbbing ankle, they chatted idly with Aaron. He inquired about their running routine, the races they'd done or planned to do, and how they discovered the reserve. The runner spoke in measured answers at first, but each question revealed a genuine interest in them as a person. Slowly, their responses grew more animated, the passion for running illuminating their face even as they winced with each small movement. In turn, Aaron described his role. He was newer to this particular park but had been a ranger for some years. His love for the job radiated through each anecdote, patrolling to ensure safety for visitors, observing wildlife patterns, even organizing cleanup efforts. He spoke about nature with a reverence that suggested he saw himself not as an owner but as a steward of the land. They were both surprised at how easily conversation flowed between them once initial nerves dissipated. The runner found something quietly heroic about how Aaron's presence resonated in the station. Then again, perhaps that was the relief talking, as it was comforting to have someone watching over them. Taking stock of that moment, it occurred to them that through all of life's busyness, it was rare to connect with another person so transparently, even if just for a few hours. Eventually, Aaron offered to drive them home. The runner hesitated, concerned about inconveniencing him, but he insisted it was part of his job to ensure visitor safety. The runner had no real defense for that, so they accepted. Supporting them out to the vehicle, he made sure every movement was careful, ensuring minimal pressure on the ankle. During the drive out of the reserve, they both fell into an easy silence. The runner watched the trees pass by, minds steeped in gratitude. They couldn't deny a quiet spark of curiosity about the man behind the uniform. Aaron pulled up to the runner's apartment building, carefully parked, and insisted on helping them inside. The runner's face flushed at the clutter in the small living room, discarded running gear, unwashed dishes on the counter, but they were in too much pain to protest. Once they were seated on the couch, the ranger humbly offered to help prop their foot up. His kindness was as unwavering as it was unexpected. He left them with instructions for icing and rest, plus a note with his phone number, just in case you need anything else. When he left, the apartment seemed quieter than before. The runner found themselves examining the note and the neatly spelled name. A subtle pang of disappointment accompanied the closing of the door, but it was drowned out by throbbing agony. That first night, dozing off with an ache in their foot, they couldn't help but reflect on the kindness of a near stranger and the calm steadiness in his dark eyes. Days passed. The runner's ankle required far more rest than typical for them, a forced downtime that gnawed at their usual routine. Unable to run, they attempted small exercises, careful not to aggravate the healing process. They thought about Aaron more often than they cared to admit. A mild tingle of curiosity surfaced each time they recalled the cut of his jaw or the comforting timbre of his voice. They resisted calling him, figuring there was no real reason to, but the memory of his presence lingered. Then, about a week after the accident, a note appeared on their door. It was tucked discreetly beneath the mat, reading, "I'm off duty tomorrow. If you want some fresh air, I could drive you to the reserve for an easy walk. No pressure on your ankle, I promise. No running allowed." The message was signed with a quick flourish. Aaron. The runner's heart fluttered. It had only been a week, but they truly missed the forest and the sensation of open space. On top of that, a second chance to meet Aaron face to face felt oddly daunting should they appear too eager or too hesitant. But the invitation was too sweet to resist, so they dressed the next morning, carefully donning supportive shoes and an ankle brace. True to his word, Aaron arrived in a park ranger's pickup, though he was dressed off-duty this time, plain khakis and a casual flannel shirt. The understated attire suited him, accentuating his gentle demeanor. Throughout the short drive to the edge of the forest, they engaged in shy conversation. He asked how the runner's healing went, while they teased him about leaving secret notes like a spy. A soft laugh illuminated Aaron's face, making the runner's heart stir in an unexpected way. Entering the reserve, the runner experienced both excitement and apprehension. Aaron led them to a wide gravel path, easier on injured ankles than the more rugged trails. The forest canopy offered dappled sunlight, dancing over them in golden pattern. Each step the runner took was unhurried, mindful of the foot that had yet to fully heal. Aaron lingered at their side, occasionally gesturing toward a particular bird perched on a branch or explaining the local significance of a certain plant. It felt surreal, hearing him speak with such reverence for nature while they walked together. The runner had always felt intimately connected with the forest when running, but hearing Aaron's perspective brought a deeper appreciation for even the smallest details, a cluster of blooming wildflowers, the faint calls of hidden animals. A hushed sense of calm enveloped them, as though they were sharing a precious secret with one another. Their conversation meandered from wildlife to personal stories. Aaron told them how he'd grown up in a household by the sea, but always longed for forests, finding his true calling among old growth trees and meandering streams. The runner confessed that running had been a way to channel restlessness, an outlet that made them feel self sufficient and alive. The more they spoke, the more they discovered small parallels, an attraction to wide open spaces, a stubborn determination to not give up when an obstacle arose, and a shared intuition that sometimes the best remedy for life's troubles was simply to be outside. Though still fairly tentative, the warmth between them grew, earnest and unforced. By the time they turned back to the parking lot, the runner felt less weight on their chest. They pressed a palm lightly against Arian's arm in thanks, unsure if the gentle sparkle in his eyes was truly for them or just the reflection of the sun. The weekly walks became a routine. Over the subsequent fortnight, with each passing outing, the runner's ankle improved, and Aaron's presence seemed more and more intertwined with their healing. They walked deeper into the forest each time, the runner experimenting with short distances on even terrain, while Aaron remained a cautious observer. After each walk, they would linger at the ranger station if Aaron was on duty, or sit on a wooden bench near the clearing, sharing stories and idle laughter. One afternoon, the runner brought a small picnic, nothing too elaborate, just sandwiches and fresh fruit. Aaron responded with a bright grin that made the runner's pulse skip. It was then that the runner realized these gentle moments had blossomed into something beyond gratitude or friendship. There was a slow budding affection that flickered from both sides, an understanding that comfort and trust were transforming into something more. Of course, life was not without complications. The runner's friends teased them about the mysterious ranger, and the runner brushed it off with a flustered grin, neither confirming nor denying any romantic undercurrents. Aaron's own schedule was unpredictable, often changing with shifts or occasionally requiring him to be away for days on end, but neither of them needed immediate definitions or daily visits. Their bond thrived on unhurried development, as patient and steady as the tall pines in the reserve. Whenever they met, they shared small confessions, a favorite memory from childhood, a hidden fear. They also began to trade jokes and teased each other gently. The runner found that each time they parted, they were already counting the hours until the next meeting. In time, the runner's ankle healed enough for them to try a soft jog under Aaron's watchful eye. The first time they broke into a careful run, Aaron jogged alongside them, matching pace with gentle concern. For this small test, they chose the original trail where the accident took place, albeit they only covered a short section. The runner's nerves jangled, recalling the creek and that single misstep that had toppled them. Yet on this day, with Aaron's encouraging presence, they navigated the path successfully. Reaching the final bend, they paused, breathless from the exhilaration of returning to an activity that had felt lost. Aaron stopped too, a wide grin lighting up his face. On an impulse, the runner threw their arms around him in a spontaneous hug. Sheer joy pulsed through every fiber of their being, overshadowing any lingering remnants of pain. Taken by surprise, Aaron hesitated only a moment before returning the embrace, arms strong and comforting. Surrounded by the forest's hushed witnesses, they simply held each other, unspoken gratitude weaving between them. The day eventually came when the two of them dared a full run together. The runner wore new shoes, and Aaron, who was not particularly known for being a runner, insisted on tagging along. Although he soon found himself winded, stifling a laugh every time the pace got too fast, he maintained an encouraging grin. They made frequent stops, half out of courtesy to Aaron's stamina and half to protect the still recovering ankle. It became a unique pattern. Run a bit, stop to point out a rare bird, run a bit more, pause to admire the glimpses of sunlight filtering through thick branches. In that manner, the run morphed into a dance between them, part athletic endeavor, part shared reverence for nature's splendor. At the end, they finished near the creek, the same place where the accident had begun it all. Both breathing heavily, they exchanged a glance. Without a word, Aaron stepped onto a rock near the water, extending his hand to help the runner across the stones. This time, they crossed safely, guided by trust and a steady hand. As they reached the other side, the runner's heart felt full and the forest seemed to shimmer a little brighter. In the aftermath, they found themselves more open, acknowledging in gentle gestures what words had not yet fully expressed. Although no grand confession had erupted, something deep and sincere bound them. Often it manifested in quiet touches, fingers interlaced during a restful moment by the lake, or the runner's head leaning against Aaron's shoulder as they watched squirrels scurry about. With each passing week, the runner's sense of belonging in the reserve grew beyond a solitary joy. Now it was a place of shared moments, a safe haven where two hearts converged. The ranger station, once a site of simple practicality, turned into a cozy nook where they laughed over mugs of tea. Aaron, careful to separate work and personal life, never let his responsibilities slack off. But he also recognized how precious it was that someone saw the park through his eyes. Meanwhile, the runner felt that their passion for movement had been complemented by a gentler, quieter dimension of living. In the end, when the runner could bound along the trail without a hint of pain, one final moment brought clarity to all that had passed between them. They were in a sunlit glade, golden hours illuminating streaks of dust in the air. Sitting on a fallen log, their ankles brushing, they exchanged small talk about future plans. The truth was, they had been dancing around the inevitable. The airport of possibility had them both holding the same boarding pass. Sensing the moment, Aaron turned, taking the runner's hands in his own. His voice sounded as soft as the wind threading through the leaves. "There's no rush, but I don't want to pretend anymore. Something beautiful has started here." Warmth swelled in the runner's chest, tears threatening to gather at the corners of their eyes. The runner squeezed his hands, responding quietly, "I know, and I don't want to lose it." Their lips met in a tender kiss. Surrounded by the silent applause of ancient trees standing as witnesses, the connection felt undeniably real. It was not the dramatic coda of a sweeping romance, but more like the gentle page turn of a shared book, a promise to walk forward together. From that day onward, the runner knew the woods held a deeper meaning than any timed race or personal record. Here in the hush of nature, they and the park ranger had found each other. And though this new relationship grew at a slow, careful pace, its roots ran sturdy and true, just like the towering evergreens that sheltered them. Who had seen this story unfold from the very first step and would undoubtedly watch over them for countless dawns to come.